Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to talk about how to do a back roll on a surfboard, so a strapless back roll. This is one of those harder tricks. We're getting more advanced. Looking forward to walking everyone through this trick. Hey everyone, so Evan Netch here. Today we're going to talk about how to do a strapless back roll. It is a more advanced trick, so if you are working up to this, check out some of the previous videos on how just to do your basic straight air before getting into a back roll. If you are ready for a back roll, let's go. Let's get into it, and we're going to break down exactly how to do a strapless back roll on a surfboard. Back roll on a surfboard, I would say, is pretty different from a back roll on a twin tip. You're going to have to spend, a lot of your focus is going to be on just keeping this board stuck to my feet, and how do I do that? And honestly, I think there's a few different ways to keep the board on your feet doing a back roll. The easiest way is doing a grab. That's how I like to do it a lot. Whether you do a front hand grab or backhand grab is completely different. Or a no grab back roll is probably the hardest. But we're going to talk a little bit about each. That way you can hopefully take some of these tips and apply it to maybe where you're at in the learning process of figuring out the back roll for yourself. So myself doing a back roll, I would say there's just a couple key points I like. One is I really try to keep the kite forward in front of noon. It's very easy to do your back roll, be pulling on your backhand, and when you land, your kite's straight over your head and you're basically stalled, or you land and your kite's going the other direction and you either need to change your direction or do a kite loop to bring it through. And a lot of people do back rolls like that, and they do huge back rolls like that are amazing and epic, and I think they look awesome. But I personally like the feeling of landing and keeping my speed and my direction that same way, keeping that kite steady. So we're going to focus on doing this back roll without a kite loop and keeping that kite forward, which I think is maybe a little bit harder, if you're doing those smaller back rolls, keeping that kite forward. So as we carve up into the wind, we push the nose of the board into the wind. The way I learned it was first by grabbing the heel side edge of my board with my front hand. This leaves your back hand on the bar, and this is why I think a lot of people end up with the kite drifting back and you kind of land kind of stalled and stopped. But as you carve up into the wind, you can grab your front hand on that heel side edge of the board, push that nose of the board into the wind, and when you come around, having your hand on the heel side edge gives you pretty good control of the board. So even if your feet come disconnected with the wind on the board, on that heel side edge, that board can always, the wind's still on the bottom, the board can be downwind of you, and you can pretty easily stick it back under your feet. That is how I learned how to do the back roll. I've kind of stopped doing it like that recently, unless I'm going off like a really, like a vertical wave kicker. And I also find when you do a back roll like that, you really need to focus on your hand. You really need to roll that wrist, maybe even split your chicken loop on your front hand to turn that bar forward to keep your kite going the right direction, because it's easy when you're grabbing with your front hand, all your weight's in your back hand, and the kite kind of goes the other direction and you stall a little bit. How I've really enjoyed doing it more lately is doing a grab with my backhand. So I'm grabbing the back heel side edge of the board. And when I do this, I grab later in the roll. Later in the roll is normally when the board starts falling off your feet. And it allows me to really keep the kite forward and keep my momentum better. And this is how I like doing a back roll, I'd say most of the time in flat water. So I would say doing a backhand grab like this, your back roll technique is kind of the same with or without a grab. So we'll kind of just break down the back roll and speak about doing that grab or just doing that same back roll without a grab. So first, as we take off, we really want to go as high into the wind as possible. We're going to carve up into the wind, and when we leave the water going straight into the wind, we're basically already kind of halfway there, because when you land, you're going to be landing essentially straight downwind. If you leave the water going straight upwind, you've already rotated 90 degrees, and when you're landing straight downwind, there's still 90 degrees that you don't really need to rotate because you want to land going off the wind. So as we leave, the higher we point into the wind when we leave, kind of the less rotating we need to do in the air and the easier it makes it. So as we push up into the wind, I like to basically almost look at my board. I'm looking at the deck of the board being almost blown right back into my body, into my face. And my feet are in front of me, my feet are planted on that board, holding that board there. So as I come up into the wind, I'm looking at that board's getting pushed right into my body, my feet are planted on it, which is a really nice, stable, secure way to hold that board with, I would say, good control. Sounds a little scary with the board being straight upwind of you, but it gives you a lot of control of the board. And that's how I personally go about it. So I go up into the wind, nose of the board is very high, and now as soon as I'm straight up into the wind, what I want to do is keep that nose of the board into the wind. If the wind's coming this direction, nose of the board's into the wind, and I'm quickly just going to basically do a 180 with my board, really twist my hips, and it's almost just like you're kicking your back leg up and high. So I push my back leg around, and this rotates the board. The board kind of stays at that same angle to a degree in terms of how the wind's underneath of it. The board turns around, and now all of a sudden the bar can kind of like flip over your shoulder, and now all of a sudden you're spotting your landing. I'm in the air, my front hand's on the bar, and at this point with my front hand on the bar, the tail is high because the nose was high, and now I just switched places with nose and tail. Now the tail of the board's high, and it's kind of right where my backhand is. And it's pretty easy for your backhand just to grab the tail of the board right here and just kind of assist you on the way down. You can sheet in with your front hand as you're coming down to kind of soften your landing. Backhand's on the tail of the board. Boom, you land, and it usually works out pretty well. You also don't have to grab the board. I find that pretty often the tail of the board's just right there, easily accessible. I grab it because I might as well, and it just keeps the board that much secure on my feet. You can also just not grab it or keep both hands on the bar, but I really find bringing that one hand off the bar kind of helps with my balance, helps with my momentum, and the tail of the board's right there. I just normally end up grabbing it. And honestly, I think I built so much muscle memory grabbing it that it's actually a little bit harder for me to not grab the board now. So that's how I do most of my back rolls. I think a lot of people might have a little bit of a different technique going into it. That's what works best for me. So I hope that it helps you out on the water, and I hope this video was helpful. So for more like this, and also breaking down different tricks, we're going to go into the front roll. We're doing 360 shove-its, regular airs, and even more basic riding techniques. So everything related to strapless riding, please feel free to subscribe, like this video. We'd really appreciate it, and I hope this was helpful, and hope to see you back here next time. Thank you so much.